Wouldn't know whether to say good morning or just noon or what, but a couple minutes late, we'll say good afternoon. Welcome to rural Claflin. This is a wonderful facility we're at. I'm Whitney Dameron. I'm the chair of the commission. And I'm going to let our commissioners introduce themselves, starting on my left with Commissioner Cross, please.
Good morning, Emmerich Cross, Kansas City.
Delia Lister, Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Will Carpenter, Butler County.
Warren Gefeller, Russell. Bruce Riedel, Ellenwood.
Commissioner Mark cannot be here today, so I'll turn it over to staff. Deputy Secretary Schrag.
Stuart Schrag, Deputy Secretary of Operations.
Curtis Wired, Chief Counsel.
Jason Dixon, CIO.
Megan Dieters, minutes.
Thank you all. Stuart or Curtis, are there any amendments to our agenda today that we need to consider at this moment? Okay. We have the minutes in our packets. I think we saw those a few days ago. People have an opportunity to review those. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our August 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Very good. We're moving right along. Department report, regulations and promulgation. Chief Counsel Curtis Wired. Curtis, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So starting there at the top in 115.2-3, the camping fees regulation, which had been under promulgation when I started a year ago, is still under department reevaluation. You'll hear from our Parks Division Director, Connor O'Flanagan, later about public hearings that are being held in regards to that regulation. The rest of the next four, 15-1, 15-2 on the threatened and endangered species, 25-8 on elk, and 45-1, which is the new commission draft rules and regulation, have all been noticed up in the Kansas Register with the appropriate amount of time for each regulation, so that for the January 8th meeting, which will take place in Council Grove. So you'll have those four regulations to consider, we'll take public comment on, and the commission will vote on those at the next meeting. The remaining regulations that we have in promulgation are currently with the Department of Administration. Does the commission have any questions?
No questions from the commission.
Thank you.
Unintroduced staff member who was not by a microphone, Martin DeBoer, is going to talk about 2026 legislative agenda. Session starts Monday, January 2nd, and
No.
or it's 12th.
Yeah.
12th. We'll
Mr.
conclude about the end of March, and then there'll be up to a 3-day veto session, but we'll wrap this all up mid-April. So with that, Martin.
Thank you, Chairman, the Commission. Just want to give a quick overview of our legislative agenda. A lot of it's still in the process of discussions and talking. There are two topics that we are looking at exploring that I can share with you today. We are looking at introducing a bill to reinstate that 10-year senior hunting and fishing license. We are looking to introduce it with language that would then convert those that have bought the 5 years into that 10-year. There's a little bit of price change there on what they would have paid, but we're looking at converting those individuals. Just for your knowledge, as of the 19th, in those 5-year licenses, we've sold a total of 361 licenses. Of that, the combo licenses, we sold 183. There were 99 just for fishing licenses, and then 79 on the hunting licenses. So those would be converted into that 10-year if the bill were to pass. The other topic that we're looking at exploring is amending the statute related to the state ag production funds. We're looking to address and remove statutory requirement for those funds to be used on specific property. And that gives us flexibility to use it on other properties and for other strategic means in the agency. As many of you know, a lot of our funds have restrictions on them. This would just open up those fees to be able to be used where it's most necessary. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions, Commissioner Carpenter?
Just for clarification, so that's the numbers that you gave, the 361, that's since we've sold the senior licenses, or is that an annual?
So this report is for the period of 9/12/25 through 11/19/2025. So since September 12th, we've sold 361.
So this is since the other license expired?
Correct. Yes, since we instituted the 5-year.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh, exactly. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Additional questions? Very good, Martin.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're now up to our point of general public comments. Looks like we have a good group of people. I think we've got some people online who indicated an interest in talking, at least as evidenced by the phone calls I've received in the last month or so. So we'll see how that goes. We welcome anyone and everyone to come up and address the commission. We ask that in interest of time, if you could limit your comments to 10 minutes or less. We find additional time will allow that, but we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak. And we also have 2 general comment sections on the agenda. So if you don't want to speak at this particular time, at the end of the meeting, we're going to have another opportunity and you come back up then, or you can give us 2 doses of it. So with that, the microphone's open. We'll ask you to come up to the microphone and tell us who you are and where you're from, and then let us know what you got to say. Thank you. Microphone is open. Okay, the microphone's closed. Next, wait a minute.
Would you have 2 online?
Okay, well, okay, I'll back up. Anybody in the audience first? Not yet? Okay, we got a volunteer. Thank you, sir.
No, biggest complaint I
I'm
got,
sorry, please identify
I'm
yourself,
sorry.
where you're from.
I'm Tom Cope. I'm from right around here, Great
Thank you,
Bend.
Tom.
Biggest problem I'm seeing is outfitters are running rampant. They don't need licenses. They're first responder certified, none. They're taking up all the ground, so anybody that's hunting now is all forced into the public land. And they should have to buy some sort of a business license, because the money they're getting off of that, they don't have to report the taxes. So if they declared a business, then they have to report money as income. If they don't report it in the first 3 years, they've got to pay back taxes on what they got. And it should be limited on how much land they can lease. And they just had an out-of-state outfitter bought up a whole bunch of ground in southern Stafford County at $4 grand an acre. And you're just taking everything away. The youth has no place to go hunt unless they own the land, because outfitters have it. And not all of us can afford their prices. Anywhere that I've heard, anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 for a deer, and 400 or 500 a gun for a half a day duck and goose hunt. So we need to rope them in so they give us someplace to go. I mean, I understand money talks, but we need to slow them down somehow.
I've had this call in the last month myself.
Well, friend of mine's also, he said outfitters are buying local licenses and giving them to the out-of-state hunters. And that's up at Ellsworth.
I don't think that's allowed, Stuart.
No, that's illegal.
They're getting away with it though.
If you have firsthand information on, more specifics,
guy
there's
saw the-
several game wardens here that I'm sure he would love to talk to you.
That and, what was he? They're buying bow licenses, and then they'll hunt bow season and come back hunt rifle season. And I think that's only pretty much reserved just for locals, isn't it? Or in-state.
Pretty much.
And they're doing, if they lease the land, they're wanting to buy local licenses. I don't think they can do that if they're from out of state. So right now, that's all I got.
Okay, are questions for Tom or comments? Appreciate you coming today and talking.
Norman, I'm Lincoln, Kansas. on this professional guide service. For what they charge for a license, why aren't they paying more for the license? You know, if they can afford an $1,800 cell phone, these licensing guide services, they can pay more. So raise their license fee for the guide services. They're getting a free ride on us, the locals. Are taxpayers subsidizing these trout fish? When the cost exceeds the return, well, you better stop the loss. I know you guys got a budget issue. When are we going to start enforcing these boating laws? These jet skis are causing hazard on these lakes. I've had to wave them off. They're causing accidents, but law enforcement can't be there all the time. So if we can raise some more of this money, so law enforcement can enforce the laws. Because there are boat racing outfits that are racing at these lakes and they're not paying a permit. By your regulations, they're supposed to buy one. Because they were racing boats there at Cheney Lake. Labor Day weekend, and they don't pay a permit. They're supposed to. So we're tying law enforcement's hands. How about all of our boats and vehicles that are from out of state? Why aren't they inspected at the boat ramps? Because you're bringing in invasive species, these weeds, these fish, everything. Law enforcement could be there at the boat ramp and enforce this law. We used to have port of entries. One at Mankato, one at Beloit, coming in the state or out of state. What are you going to do about these screwworms? We can't stop them. They're going to get into the wildlife. If there's an open wound on the wildlife, you're going to have problems. Can you stop it? You can't, can you? So I guess I've said enough.
Thanks, Norman. Questions or comments for Norman or from commissioner or staff? Thank you so much. Anyone else from the audience before we go online? Yes, sir.
Jerome Lubers, Leota, Kansas. The question I've got is on our bow hunting. You'd buy statewide. Why can't we split that down to districts? Split it at Great Bend, down 96. Split that thing 4 or 6 different ways. I'm a little bit upset. Bow permits getting sold in eastern Kansas, and they come west when deer season starts, and you'd swear that I-70 was closed with the traffic coming through. And it's going to be bad come rifle season. As a landowner, I feel like I have the right to protect my property. I have turned people in before. I have yet to hear of any individual that got prosecuted to the max. We need to get something set up on the trespassing. If they're caught, maybe it's mandatory 3 years loss of hunting privileges. We've got to get some meat into the system because we've got too much going on out there that's not being accounted for. I thought I could make a difference. I got into the hunter ed 35 years ago. I hope I've helped with some of the kids, but the signs are still getting shot up. Our image as hunters is going down. I've had fences cut, gut piles laying out on the grass. I know what's happening. A lot of it is I don't think there's enough meat in there for somebody that gets caught. They're not having to pay the price. The other thing of it is I think we've got a manpower shortage. We sell a lot of permits, but I don't think we're doing a good enough job getting the people out there to enforce it. A prime example. I've been hunting going on over 60 years. Guess how many times I've got stopped by a game warden out in the field? 60 years of hunting, twice. I got a little lake I fish a lot. I was probably over there 15 times this summer. I never got checked once. If we can sell the permits, we can police it. I know we're gonna have to get some county attorneys and stuff like that on board. I know of one instance where they had an individual, they had him hammered on what he did wrong. County attorney did not pursue it. I can see why. The individual that got caught was an employee of one of the county commissioners. It's getting to the point, it's not who you are, it's who you know. And we've got to get over those hurdles. What land I do own, it's spread out in numerous counties. I cannot bird dog it all. I'm relying on individuals that sell the permits and that to do it for me. If not, I'm going to get real hard to get permission on the hunt. And I've got some prime property that I have over the last 40 years put together. And part of it was strictly for hunting. And the previous individual on the costs on it. I had an individual last year from Missouri on 2 pieces of property said that if I would just lease it to him for just bow season, he'd put $10,000 cash in my hand. He said cash, not something I'd have to report. There's too much going on out there, and I'm not going to get into the leasing ball game because I don't think it's right for the blue collar worker. I grew up through those ranks. I had an individual the other day called me from New York wanting permission to hunt deer. You know what he did so he could get an in the state of Kansas? He bought a quarter here in the state. I think it got misrepresented by a real estate agent because he's finding out there wasn't a lot of wildlife on it. But, there's things going on out there that I think we've got to get a better grasp on. And if we don't get a good grasp on it, I'm afraid we're going to lose it. That's all I got to say.
Jerome, your comments are appreciated. Thank you very much.
Well,
Do you have questions or comments from the commission or staff?
I just have. So what is the law, guys, about, if he owns an out-of-state person owns a quarter section of land, for instance, can he buy a resident permit?
He can get a landowner tag under that, is it KSA 32-937. If you own 80 acres, you get a one landowner permit or that's the landowner tenant tag.
And he can hunt anywhere in the state with that
No,
tag.
you have to hunt that property.
You have to
If
hunt
you
that.
get a hunt on your own land, that's
Right. But if he owns land, he's not a resident of Kansas then?
Well, in that situation, he's still a non-resident, but he's a non-resident landowner and he's entitled to that one tag for the 80 acres.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
but it's any deer, any season, as long as you're using the proper equipment.
At what point do they become a tenant? I mean, can they lease land and be a tenant and get a tag that way?
Yeah, if you're a bona fide tenant, and the statute has a pretty extensive definition of what a tenant is.
Mhm.
I know, generally speaking, that is often a thorn in the side of our law enforcement to police exactly what a tenant is. A lot of people claim to be tenants. Not speaking about any specific case, but yeah, so you can either be a landowner or a bona fide tenant of that property and obtain a tag for that one for the 80 acres.
And, let's face it, the people that want to hunt bad enough, the ones that got the money to travel to hunt are the ones that have got the money to buy it. And as a landowner for agricultural purposes, a prime example was a half a mile from a piece of my property. The individual that was farming it could not come up with the money. The bank would not go along with him to buy it. He worked a deal out with another individual. He leased the hunting rights on it for 15 years and came up with the down payment money on the property. It's making it tough on a lot of the regular producers that are trying to grow their operations and that, when you've got out-of-state money coming in like that. I bought a piece of property about 4 years ago. The real estate agent on it, he looked at me and he said, Jerome, the creek runs through here. Look what the value of this is for hunting. I looked at him and I said, it's a liability because I can't keep people off of it. So you can't go out and put a big fence up around everything. And I do have people that I let hunt. But the numbers are going down every year. So let's get some meat into it. That's the best I can say.
Appreciate your comments, Jordan. Thank you. Anyone else from the audience before we go online? Okay, Jason.
Aaron Harris, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
we can.
Hey guys, my name is Aaron Harris and I live in Junction City, Kansas. I've been hunting out here for 8 years, moved out here from Florida and definitely love being out in the woods. And I really just hopped on the call today to give some feedback about the ban on the camera use on public land. I ran across a post on Facebook that linked to the state page there, and I was asking for feedback, and so I hope this feedback will be well received, and maybe somebody will find it helpful. But from my perspective, I was one who certainly before the ban was using cameras to help in scouting on public land, and I think the biggest issue I have is that the reasons, going back and watching the video of the last meeting there where the vote was made to ban it, just don't align with real life experiences from my perspective. And I think just kind of flipping through the list of what was stated, first it talked about fair chase, and I think that's probably the most obvious, that cameras in no way make any kind of real impact on fair chase. I mean, if I've got a camera and I see it on my phone, realistically, except for maybe during the week of firearms, there's really no way that that's strategically going to help me to tag a deer, right? So I mean, it's helpful to know patterns and to try to guess patterns, but even still, when I had cameras out, I'd see a deer out and it looked like it patterned pretty good, and then I'd go sit there, and of course, any deer hunter will tell you you can pattern all you want, but deer are smart and they change patterns, and rut changes patterns. And so, I don't know if there was ever any data provided for the aspect of fair chase, but truthfully, overall, it just felt like the ban was a reactive response to a problem we didn't really have. Everything that was mentioned in the meeting was anecdotal. It wasn't really based on data that I had seen, at least. There was a talk about theft and misuse, and we know that can happen. Anybody who hunts on public land, you're always nervous with anything that you put on public land, but that's the risk of the owner putting it there. And I think all of us who hunt on public land understand that potential risk, whether it be with the stand, with the camera, or with anything that's in a place where other people can access it. I think the biggest one for me, though, that was stated that is completely opposite to real life experience is the disturbance that cameras make. And the idea that was given was that guys who have cameras are going to be going to the woods more often to check those cameras. And I think you guys know nowadays with cell cams that that's actually the exact opposite of what happens. I have had, since the camera ban, way more interaction with hunters that are just walking through my spot. I'm talking my spot that I'm hunting, right? Like, I'll be posted up in a tree, I'll be hiding in some brush, and here comes this guy just walking right on through, ruining my morning hunt. And we know that happens on public land. I mean, it's just a reality of it. But the truth is a lot of guys are spending more hours scouting, pushing wildlife around, adding added pressure to the woods. Then if we had cameras, it would actually, I think, get rid of some of that. I know when we had cameras, I saw a lot less pressure in some of the spots that I was hunting around Milford Lake, and so from my perspective, that one probably made the least sense of all of them. Then I also would mention the idea of marking a spot. I can't speak to others, but I know that there's never been a point that I've looked at a camera and thought, oh, this is somebody's spot, or there's been an interaction with somebody. I think stands getting left on public land, blinds being in position are way more likely to initiate that conversation than camera being in a particular spot. And I certainly understand the privacy concerns, but frankly, I've heard some guys get up and give their feedback about the need for enforcement and increased enforcement. And while I don't personally experience that around Milford, I think we've got guys who are doing a great job from a law enforcement side. I know the guy just mentioned 60 years, only being stopped 3 times. I think I've been stopped 3 times in the last 3 weeks around Milford. So there's a lot, I think, more interaction that certainly takes place with law enforcement. But even still, the use of cameras, from my perspective, actually helps our law enforcement team. Obviously, if you're going through the woods and you have bad intentions and you have to worry about being on camera, I think there is a reasonable expectation that some poacher might think twice about what actions they're taking. Whereas now, they can move through the woods and reasonably they don't have an expectation that anything is going to catch them on camera. And so my perspective of that would be, it's hunting on public land. There's really not a reasonable expectation of privacy on public land. The second I enter public land, I don't expect privacy. I understand I'm hunting a public space with other people, and then I've got certain expectations related to my behavior in that space. And I would just say overall that the cameras can be a great asset to assist law enforcement. And I'm certain that they probably could attest to this, that when there was use of cameras, they probably had tips and things that they got from individuals who wanted to keep the woods a place that was properly managed and wanted to deal with those who had bad intentions. And so, again, that's just my feedback. I know you guys make great decisions that you review and study. And so I certainly appreciate all of your effort and attention and managing our state wildlife. And I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. And that's pretty much all I had.
Thank you, Aaron. Let the minutes reflect that Aaron said the commission makes great decisions. See that in print at our next meeting. And any commissioners have any questions or comments for Aaron? I know staff's going to talk about this subject down on the agenda, so we'll delay their comments until then. Aaron, thank you for your time and your comments today. And next up, Jason.
Mr. Whitten,
Okay,
ask you to unmute.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name is Justin Whitten. I'm from Lawrence, Kansas. Thank you, all the commissioners and for staff of the agency for giving me a chance to comment. I know there's going to be a presentation later on trail cameras. Unfortunately, I have another obligation at 1 that I have to run to. So I'd like to echo a lot, and I won't retread ground that Aaron just, I think, very artfully laid out. I think, just to reiterate, I think the trail camera thing on public land, the privacy interests not implicated because, as Aaron pointed out, when you're on public land, you can be expected to conduct yourself in a manner in which you would not be embarrassed if your behavior was observed by a trail camera. The theft component, I don't think is a concern that warrants banning trail cameras, as that is a concern that also exists for tree stands or blinds. I mean, other property can be stolen. The fair chase argument, I agree with Aaron on that completely. A ban on trail cameras does not enhance fair chase for the taking. And I would say that fair chase also gets to an element of resource disparity and some other comments I heard about what is really being done to make sure there is a parity or an attempt at parity between the hunting experience from somebody who's a landowner versus somebody who hunts on public land. If you are not concurrently regulating trail camera usage on private land and allowing just, the increased pressure that exists on public land to not have that same opportunity. I think there's been prior comments by previous secretaries noting how Kansas has an issue with having an overall percentage of public land that's lower nationally, like 48th or something in the state. So I think banning trail cameras does not enhance fair chase. It's an accepted practice for taking of game, as Aaron pointed out. Also, you're not going to do a trail camera photo and then be able to walk into the woods, especially during archery season, and effectively take game. It's really more for pattern and tracking. And yes, you can do that with scrapes and rubs and going out and doing visual scouting. But I think, as Aaron made the point, that actually increases pressure on already a smaller amount of land because you are now having to go in and visually inspect, potentially interrupting other hunters' sits. On the enforcement piece, I think I had heard at previous commission meetings, there's a concern about, well, a ban is easier to enforce than, say, some limited number of trail cameras. But when I was looking at the wildlife regulations for hunting on public land, I think I saw that portable blinds and stands has a limit of 2 per hunter for designated area. So I would argue that if the commission can have some reasonable number of stands and blinds, it could certainly have a reasonable number of trail cameras. If the concern is over surveillance, then just have 2. And I understand the concern. Well, how will you know? Because you won't know where everyone has placed their trail cameras. But I think the large part, and speaking to the gentleman's earlier comments about his interactions with law enforcement being only 3 times or 2 times over 60 years, hunting for large part is a self-regulating activity. And I think effectively communicating that the rule is only 2 trail cameras, cellular cameras, by and large, I believe the hunting community would respect that. And if there are violations, we would hope that other hunters would report it. The last thing I want to comment on is, I think I had heard at one of the previous commission meetings, and it was maybe communications by Commissioner Mark to the agency about whether or not trail camera, this regulation was promulgated as a need for effective herd management or game management. I recall the answer being no. And so then it gets to the question of, if we don't really have any reasons that, that previously been addressed as to why we're regulating, why was this promulgated? What problem is being addressed? And I would say, it shouldn't be regulated just for the sake of regulating. If it's not advancing the herd, if it's not for game management, if it is detracting, in my opinion, from the hunting experience, if it is increasing physical presence of hunters and causing greater wildlife disturbance, then I think, while well-intentioned, the reg is probably having the opposite effect. So I have submitted some written comments on this. I would appreciate if the commission would consider rescinding the regulation and maybe taking a few years to study the impact and then coming back to the table with a revised regulation. However, if that's not feasible, perhaps rescinding the regulation, I would propose an amendment that it not apply to public lands, maybe to just WEHA lands, because if the privacy concern is valid for landowners that participate in WEHA, I can appreciate that concern, and maybe it's appropriate for it to apply just to WEHA land. However, I do understand the WEHA program is voluntary participation. I think people who participate in it, if they get any economic benefit from it, they should convey full hunting opportunity for it. I also think some limitation on the number of trail cameras would be appropriate, but has drafted the total ban on trail cameras of all kinds for throughout the year on all public lands is just a little too broad. So I also want to thank the commission for bringing this issue up. I know it's been brought up at previous meetings, and you all have kept your word to revisit the issue. I'm sorry to miss the presentation, but thank you very much. And thank you all for your work. That's all I have.
Thank you, Justin. Questions or comments for Justin? Thank you very much. Jason, anyone else?
Looks like we got one more. Hunter Lawless. I'm gonna unmute you now.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
sir.
Hey, I would just like to thank you for your time and then agree with about everything everyone has already said regarding outfitters and the public land trail camera use. I know I started using a trail camera shortly before the ban, and didn't um, I didn't see more impact of foot traffic because of it. I actually stayed out of areas where I saw people come across the camera. I would kind of know, this has been, this weekend has been trampled through. I'm not going to go there and waste my time or, put any more pressure on animals that are already there. Um, and I thought it was very effective to lessen the traffic. And then what I would also like to comment on is the non-resident waterfowl hunting, which I believe you guys are going to be discussing. I would like to invite you to the McPherson Valley wetlands and come down and try to hunt on a weekend with one of your youth. My daughter loves to go duck hunting. She's 4 and she just loves being there. So when we go out and she can only go on the weekends because she's in preschool, it causes a pretty hard go for me to give her an experience that's worthwhile. We go out and there are any number of trucks. You can throw a dart at the wall and pick how many trucks are going to be there on any given day, and more than likely half of them are going to be non-residents. I understand that it is a public land. I understand that it's a tough place to hunt. There's not much public land here. So when we do go out and we're putting pressure on these birds, it's really causing, you can see the birds are moving away quicker. It's causing a harder time for locals that want to go hunt on the weekend. And I don't have the solution to this. I just wanted to give my input on what I've personally seen and how it's just tough to get out there with your family, your friends on the weekend specifically, to do, to go hunt. And I just would hope that you guys would consider that. I submitted a written letter to you guys through your form on the website that is much better than what I'm trying to ramble off here. I'm trying to paraphrase as best as I can and not waste your guys' time. But I do thank you for everything you're doing and invite you to come and see the wetlands and see the pressure that's happening out here. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Hunter. We appreciate your comments. Any comments from the commission? Okay.
Well, it looks like we got Marshall Loftus. I'm gonna unmute you now.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm Marshall Loftus. I'm the chair of the Kansas chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. First, I just want to thank you as a commission for all of your hard work. I know it's kind of a thankless job, and you've been doing a great job here in Kansas. So first, I just want to thank you for your service. I guess today my comment is more just to raise awareness to you and to the public, because I feel like I just kind of heard about this behind the scenes, and maybe not everyone knows about this, but I'd been made aware a few months ago that our walk-in hunting program has lost around 200,000 acres in the past year. That's approaching 20% of our total walk-in hunting acres. So that's extremely concerning for me and for our chapter. I'm not sure what, if anything, the commission can do or what powers you have to address issues with walk-in, right? I mean, it's probably something that needs to be addressed at the legislative level, possibly with more funding or whatever that may be. But, so even if someone's listening to this and you're like, well, I don't really care about walk-in, I hunt Hillsdale and that's it. Or, I hunt Cheyenne Bottoms and that's it. Well, I think one of the most important things about our walk-in hunting program is that we have great, state owned or state managed public lands in Kansas. Those are awesome, but we also have these walk-in hunting acres, and the way those acres support our wonderful public lands is that it disperses people, it spreads out pressure, right? There's lots of great opportunity there, but it certainly spreads out pressure. Especially, you're going to be talking about the waterfowl thing. I know that's been a hot topic. I'll tell you just personally, when I waterfowl hunt, I just go hunt on Weehaw because I can have the place to myself. But if we keep losing these properties, I'm going to be on the public marshes with everybody else, and this crowding problem is going to get 1,000 times worse. So anyway, I just wanted to shine a light on that for you folks and for the public, that there's a major issue there, that we've lost a ton of hunting access just in the past year. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront and bring it to your attention. So thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. Interesting comments.
I got a question. Is
from
are the
Commission?
are the numbers we heard correct?
Yeah, and Jake, if you would come up and kind of address the comments. Marshall, I appreciate the comments. We appreciate your involvement in BHA. But yeah, it is a growing problem, and so I'm going to turn it over to.
Is it because we can't compete with lease rates?
Yeah, that's part of the puzzle there. So I'll let Jake explain a little more.
Sure. Appreciate the question and him shining the light on this. It is an issue that, Jake George, Wildlife Division Director. Something that we have been dealing with. It's twofold, really. We're competing with private leasing. We have a lot of properties where we get a good property on the ground, and it's kind of like advertising for it for somebody to get access to it, to take a look at it, and then it gets leased out from under us, because even with we went through a restructuring of our payments about 5-6 years ago. And the quality of the habitat determines what we're paying on the property, but the upper end of what we're paying, even on the eastern side of the state, where there's a premium paid because it's closer to the urban populations, is about $18 an acre. That's the top end. Out west, we can be paying $2 or less an acre, depending. The other side of it is the huge loss in Conservation Reserve Program acres that we've seen in the state, because that was a large part of the properties that we have leased for walk-in hunting access. So, yeah, at the cap, we were about 1.2 million at the highest we were ever at, and now we're just barely over 1 million. But we have two different funding sources. One is our PR grant for the walk-in hunting access program, and the other is the VPA grant, or voluntary public access, which is a farm bill program, which is periodic when the farm bills are approved, and we don't know how much we'll get in that. But that has kept us over 1 million acres with those VPA properties that we've been able to lease through that program. So it is something that we're continuously battling and have been for the last 10, 15 years. Have properties that come out and try to get new properties in. So.
Thank you. Perhaps that's something we can look at with a little more of an overview of the acres, the history, the volume of hunters that we're seeing taking advantage of those opportunities if we have that information. I think the commission would be interested in seeing some of that.
Yep, we'd be happy to.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments, Marshall. Anything else at the moment?
Just to clarify on that, Mr. Chairman, would you like to see a presentation at the January meeting on our Weehaw properties, kind of the history there? Is that what you're asking for?
If that's timely, I know it takes time to put these things together, but
We'll talk about it. If not at the January, I'm sure we could put it together by the April meeting as a presentation for the commission.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
If we could even expand that, access is one of the biggest things we're dealing with, because every other issue, whether it's hunting pressure and duck or deer, in-state, out-of-state, all gets tied up in access. So if you can add to that study, just what's happened to all the hunting acres in Kansas, I don't know how to describe it, and then how much of it's public, how much of it's leased privately, how much of it, if you've got that information, that would be nice to know and see what the trends are. I think I know directionally what the trends are. Private leases are going up and public leasing is going down, but it'd be nice to know the trajectory and just the magnitude, how quick this is happening. You know, and it's an issue. The reason it's so difficult is, you know, if you're a landowner, I am. If I'm a seller, I'm all for out-of-state hunting, and at least if I'm a buyer of land, I'm against it. So there's motivations that are real that you know, don't have a lot to do with the actual the hunting part of it. It has to do with the economics part of it, and that makes it even more difficult for the commission to deal with these issues, because I think you're getting into legislative territory when you start trying to address things in that manner.
Yeah, the market has figured out that land is worth more than cattle and crops, and hunting, fishing, outdoor recreation, renewable energy, wind, solar, et cetera, have all changed the dynamic of pricing of rural ground in Kansas.
Yeah, and you've got, you know, Farm Bureau, you got the KLA, you know, all the major farm-oriented organizations are really for and advocates of out-of-state hunting and out-of-state, you know, because it increases the value of their members' land.
Not all of them. We saw a bill on that this year.
We did.
But
Well,
it came
good.
from Livestock Association because of
Well, they've changed their tune.
the pressure that their members have in buying land when someone's looking to buy a hunting lease.
Yeah.
Or even a wind farm or a solar farm.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Carpenter.
Yeah, and that's what I would elaborate on. There was a bill last year introduced by KLA because of that effect. And that's kind of what I was looking for, those clarifications on that, because our local realtors, if it's a prime piece of land, you know, for hunting, they advertise that you can get a Kansas deer permit. I just wanted to make sure, but that's only to hunt on that land. Okay, because I know some people that have bought, a guy from Texas bought a quarter section of grass that probably hadn't been a deer on that except for in the rut, but it was sold to him because he thought he could get a resident permit. But one of the things, and I kind of, Mr. Chairman, we got a little time here.
We got time.
And some people have heard this, but a lot of this land is leased, and these guys lease it annually just for deer season. So the only time that they use that, and I know it's an educational deal. I'm not sure exactly how to premise this or how we would implement it, but a lot of times they're only up here for rifle season, you know, and that land sits vacant that entire time. You could be hunting quail on it, geese or whatever, even if they wanted it left alone after rifles or before rifle season. But a lot of landowners that lease their land don't want to jeopardize losing that lease because of it. And I wish we could do that, because you got to believe these out-of-state folks are also hunters, and they understand the access issues in their states and stuff like that. So I just would like to see us do an educational deal where if you're not using this land, and this would go to the landowners and the leasers also, the lessers, but not to hog their land, so to speak. You know, if they're not using that land, and they're only using it for firearm season, let the landowner know that he could allow access to that land after that. It's not going to bother them. They're not going to be back till the next December. You know what I'm saying? If there's geese on that land or upland birds or whatever. So I'm just rambling here, but I think that's a valid thing as we talk about more and more land being leased. A lot of times it's not leased for year round. It's just leased for a specific hunting season. And if we could educate people, I think we could get a lot more access to a lot more land that's being leased. I'm off my soapbox.
Fair comment. Further comments from the commission? Jason, we through for now?
We are not yet. I've got Michael Castelli.
Oh, sorry.
Let me unmute you. And we have one more after him.
Can you hear me?
That's it.
Okay,
Welcome back.
Is there still an echo?
No, we're good now.
We're good.
Is there still an echo?
No, you should be good now.
Should be good?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
I talked to several commissioners this week about my non-resident waterfowl proposal. I got about 6 minutes left of my lunch hour, so I'm going to miss Stuart's presentation, but I already know that the department does not have a proposal or any suggestions on how to deal with this. So here's my proposal. We all know that the economic impact is going to be a thorn in the department's and the commission's side of trying to get anything done. So how do we get around that? The number one complaint on non-resident waterfowl hunting is they hunt all day. So they're in 2 hours before sunrise till sunset, and they never leave the marsh. So my proposal would be to end all non-resident waterfowl hunting at noon, and that they would have to be in the parking lot by 1 o'clock. This forces them to go to their hotel, to go to lunch, which they're not spending money in town on lunch because they're still in the marsh. They can't go back out and get in the boat and scout, so they're going to eat dinner. This would be a big win for the residents because if we drove 2 hours to a marsh at 1 o'clock, that we would only be competing with resident hunters. And I've already hunted 25 days on public land this year, and I would say this proposal would eliminate 70 to 90% of the pressure by kicking them out at noon. And there's no way the Economic Impact Committee can say that there's going to be a $200,000 loss when you're making them go to lunch, making them go to dinner, making them go to town and spend money. And it would relieve a lot of the all-day pressure, which is the number one complaint.
It's still a work in progress, Michael. I would say that. I appreciate your comments and we'll take them into consideration, I'm sure. We have one more.
You have one more, Mr. Floyd Doyle. Ask you to unmute.
Yes, it's Floyd Dow. I'm in Riley County, Manhattan, Kansas. Have a couple comments regarding to the cameras on public land. I did send in a written comment too, but I have a couple of concerns with cameras on private land. One with social media, pretty common now for people to have a picture of some hunter doing something goofy or came in at 8 o'clock when a hunter had been there at 6 and embarrassing people online with social media. But my primary concern was that is I hunt with my wife and daughters, and it's not unusual on social media. If you see a female picture of a female hunter, eventually there's going to be some crude comments. And if we have cameras on public land, I'm hunting with my wife and daughters, and it shows up on someone's game cam, could be a likelihood that they post them on public medium and media and social media and make crude comments. That's my primary reason I'm against cameras on public land. A couple other issues with that is on social media, you can see people like there's a guy I follow, it's got 240 cameras on public land in other states. So he's getting local people to put those up, and he can just go in and shoot a deer and post it on to get a bigger following. And I saw a guy on public land here in Riley County put up a camera several years ago, put liquid bait in front of it, and then he can monitor by baiting and with a camera what's going on. So there's several issues I have with cameras on public land, and I hope we keep that ban in place. Anyway, I appreciate your work on this, and that's all of my comments.
Thank you, Floyd. Through for now, Jason?
Looks like we're good for now.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just, I forgot to add at the beginning of the public comment section, I know we have one later here, is that Megan has provided all the written comments from the public here in this red folder. I'd encourage you to flip through those when you have the chance. Each of you, we did receive a lot of written comments on the trail camera issue, which we did issue a press release asking for people to provide comment. So there's a lot of information from the public there. I'd encourage you to look at. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the commission did a good job getting the word out. I saw it referenced on local television station as well. At this point in time, the moment we've all been waiting for, I think we have Secretary Kennedy who's ready to address us. Sorry you couldn't be here, sir, but we look forward to your comments today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also sorry I couldn't be here today. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and jump right in. Thank you, Mr. Chair, commissioners, and everyone there in Claflin today. And to those joining us by phone and online, we really appreciate all the support, all the comments that you all provide, and I'm glad you're utilizing the technology to stay engaged. We've already heard some valuable comments this afternoon, and I want to acknowledge the time and thought that many members of the public bring to these sessions. Many of you have heard me speak about the importance of public engagement, and I want to reaffirm today that this remains a top priority for me and for Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. Commission meetings are one of the most critical venues for Kansas to engage directly in this regulatory process, and we continue to encourage broad participation. I want to welcome those of you here in person and encourage you to take advantage of the public comment opportunities provided during this meeting. Whether you're here to weigh in on camping fees, trail cameras, on public land, hunting pressure, on unlimited public lands, or another issue altogether, we're here to listen, and I know that our commissioners are here to listen as well. Engagement for me means active two-way communication, so that decisions are shaped by many voices and viewpoints, not just a single perspective. At the same time, our staff are guided by science and data, applying their expertise, experience, and research to ensure that our work reflects both scientific insight and practical wisdom, pairing the visions of Kansas with the best available knowledge. Collaboration and partnerships are at the heart of this work. The vision and voices of many Kansans have shaped our past successes, and they will continue to guide our future. We must engage all communities across Kansas, not only those that utilize our services directly, because conservation and outdoor recreation belongs to everyone. This is not just a one-time effort. It's a charge that we carry forward into 2026 and beyond, ensuring that the public engagement remains central to how Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks serves all Kansans. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Wishing you our best. There are comments or questions from the commissioners for the Secretary? Appreciate your time today, sir. Look forward
Thank you.
to seeing you next time. We're now at informational items. We're going to start with Connor Flanagan with camping fees. I'll say at the outset, we've got a few items that might generate additional public comments, and we're going to wade into them. And if we get half hour down the road and time to take a break, we'll probably take a time out and take a break, but we're going to keep moving forward at the moment. Thank you, Connor.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Connor O'Flanagan, State Park Director. Here to give you an update on our town halls we've been hosting. Jason, where were I?
Is it clicking?
Yeah, keep clicking. There we go. Okay, just a quick review. Fee increases that are under review. On the left, discontinuation of the annual camping permit. The 14-night camping permit would be increased from $110 to $165. Overnight camping from $9 to $15. One utility from $9 to $11. 2 utility, $11 to 13, 3 utility, $12 to 15. And then on the annual vehicle permit, from $15 to 40. And then for the DMV passport for an in-state resident, from 15 to 30. And then senior disabled annual would be from $12.50 to 20. And then the daily vehicles from $5 to 8. And then the senior disabled was from $2.50 to 4. And then the seasonal camping program would look to go to a single tier for one utility site being $680 for 30 days, 2 utility $740, and 3 utility $800. All right, so we have 5 town halls scheduled. We've completed 4 of those. Hillsdale State Park, that was on September 3rd. Then El Dorado State Park on September 23rd. Went to Dodge City on October 24th, and Hayes November 3rd. The last one we have upcoming is Manhattan, December 3rd at the Flint Hills Discovery Center. So then we'll just go through real quick. Hillsdale State Park attendees, we had 18 residents and 2 non-residents. Main comments regarding the fee increases were centered around a desire to keep the annual camping permit in its current form and not changing it. A desire to keep the seasonal camping program cheaper compared to what it is now, than rather going to the one fee rate across the state. And then also preference to seeing fee increases phased in. There's lots of comments about it's been 10 years since we've increased fees. And so a lot of understanding of we need to increase fees, but it's hard to take that in one time. So some of those comments were a desire to see that being phased in over 2 years or so. El Dorado State Park, we had 19 in-state residents, 2 non-residents. The main comments on the fee increases was a desire to keep the annual camping cheaper compared to what it is now than what it was proposed. Dodge City State Park, we had 8 residents. The main comments there, again, were the annual camping permit, desire to keep that in its current state, and then to see that seasonal camping program cheaper compared to what it is now. Hayes, that was our most attended by far, 59 residents and 2 non-residents. Very similar comments like the others, desire to have that annual camping permit, still providing those discounts, and then to see that seasonal camping program at a cheaper rate compared to what it is being proposed. So just a summary of all those that we've seen to date, the main theme across all of those is to keep the annual camping permit, to see a seasonal camping program be a little cheaper, and then phased in those fee increases. You all should have received reports from each one of those that I've sent up. If not, I'd be happy to send those to you. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Yeah, question. Is there a reason why we waited 10 years to increase fees?
I couldn't give you an answer right now. I'm not sure exactly why it lapsed that long. It's pretty long.
Of the increase seems big to people, and
Mhm.
the idea of doing it more frequently in smaller chunks makes a lot
Right.
of sense to me. Now, whether we phase in this one, because we haven't done it for 10 years, I don't know if that makes sense, but it seems to me that we'd ought to revisit it at least every 2 years.
Sure. Yeah. 2-3 years. Make sure just revisit and
Yeah.
check those things to make sure we don't get into this type of situation again.
Yeah.
Understand?
Connor, is your non-residents, is that the same ratio about who uses it, or is that well below, or what?
It's difficult to say. So a lot of these meetings happened outside of our prime camping season. So a lot of people that may be camping in the park, say from a different state, are home, not during the summer. Depends on the park too. So certain parks out west may have a lot of out-of-state people coming, like Glen Elder. There's a lot of people from Nebraska compared to, say, Clinton or Eisenhower. It's a lot of in-state residents at those locations. So it's kind of hard to say exactly. There's going to be more out of state than what was represented there. To the exact ratios, I couldn't tell you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So remind me a little bit on the sheets you've had before were comparison with other states. Wasn't there only two other states that had still had annual camping permits, something like that?
From my understanding, there's only one of two states, Kansas being one of them, that still has the annual camping permit.
All right. In the future, it might help if you put that, the non-resident slide up there so we could compare.
Okay.
You did a great job at El Dorado by comparing what other states were charging for these same fees.
Mhm.
And we're still going to be well under the way I remember any of the other states that surround us.
Correct. Yeah. None of our increases would be either at or below all the other states in our region.
Exactly. So thank you.
Connor, do you have any comments from like private sector, RV park owners or people like that?
Yeah, so we did a review, mainly that pertains to the annual camping permit, not the annual camping, correction, the seasonal camping program. A lot of RV and private industry have like 30-day contracts, KOAs, things like that. So we did a review to see what their daily rates are, what their weekly, monthly rates are, to make sure we're not over competing and taking business away from them. So we've heard some specifically from El Dorado area, a desire to see those increases for the seasonal camping program. But other than that, there was a review done on all those private industry.
All right, thank you. Further, Curtis, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Commissioner's done with questions. I wanted to speak to Commissioner Gfeller's question to Connor about the rate of increases. I obviously can't speak for why it took 10 years to propose this increase here, but just reiterate that going forward, the RAINS Act cap of about $200,000 a year direct economic impact that we can have in a regulation change without ratification through a bill creates a real hurdle, especially in our camping fees realm, because we sell so many. Even the slightest increase puts us over that amount. I think this just as a refresher is a proposal we're working through, but if it were to become law, this would require a bill in the legislature to ratify. So the regulation would begin, and then we would basically put it on hold while the legislature would ratify it, because of the large economic impact, that the direct compliance costs that this change would incur on the public. So changing it, I guess, strategically, when you think ahead about changing it every so often or more frequently, it would create a lot of logistical planning when you think about legislation in tandem with regulations as you're raising fees up to this magnitude. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but it seems like we're running into that problem with just about everything we're doing. And I guess I'm curious, maybe Commissioner Carpenter can answer this, but is the legislature addressing these problems? Because, the cap seems to be so low, we can't really do anything that meets the economic impact threshold. Is there anything
Commissioner
happening
Carpenter, you want to comment?
legislatively?
Well, I think, for at least from my point of view on this and a lot of other folks, maybe Wildlife and Parks was kind of an unintended victim of the RAINS Act, quite frankly. And I don't think that wasn't the original intent. It was more about agencies passing regulations and stuff like that had unintended consequences or economic consequences. But I don't think Wildlife and Parks, they just kind of got caught up in that. Quite frankly, that's the way I think. But they want and I'm not on that committee, so thank God. But they want oversight of these regulations that some agencies are making that do have unintended consequences and cost the public lots of money. Ours not being one of them. I do think, though, that we have such a valid point here about raising these fees that because we are almost an entirely fee-funded organization. And so and I will testify before that committee, but my spiel will be basically, if you're going to make Wildlife and Parks an entirely fee-funded organization, then you ought to give them the resources to run their organization. It's that simple. I fail to understand how that would not be a very good selling point for this bill. So that's where I'm coming from but yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I make 2 points. I know they had a interim committee this year that was looking at, the committee is called something like the Senate version of the Doge committee that Elon Musk chaired for President Trump. And they were looking at efficiencies. And the Secretary of State's office, which is part of the process for approving rules and regulations, Chief Counsel told that committee that that particular piece of legislation and requirement was a bad bill and ought to be repealed. And it's unworkable and it should just go away. Now, I don't know that they have that much weight in the legislative process, given the people who kind of like that. Now they like essentially a legislative branch of government superseding the executive branch prerogative for promulgating rules and regulations. But that's a battle. We'll see where it goes. Number two, I think, there are opportunities. I know the agency has received concerns from legislators and the public alike about the challenges with investing in our park system, and taking information like this and layering it over the needs that the parks have can help advance the legislation, because I think, we have a lot of parks and the commission has a lot of responsibility to keep those up for the public benefit. So demonstrating, this is where we need to get the money. It's like a user fee, quite frankly, but the parks need money to bring them up to what the public wants to see. So appreciate all you do with what you have, but hopefully one of these days we can do more with more. So thank you, Connor.
All right, thank you.
Are there questions from the?
Connor, after the public comment, are you considering leaving the annual permit in place and raising that fee, or are you just still set on doing away with it?
Yeah, I think if there's something that you'd want me to look at as a commission, and if there's options you may want to look at, I'd be happy to do something like that. But this is really for you guys to review and decide on what direction we need to go.
I mean, changing it to 300 would keep it about the same as your 20-day break even on that fee.
I can look at those details for you if you'd like.
I think it'd be something worth considering,
Right.
as many comments as you had from the public on it.
Sure, yeah.
Commissioner Carpenter?
And I appreciate the previous commissioner's statements, but I think that when you're one of the only, in 50 states, you're one of two that have that, there's probably a reason for that. And you got really kind of two choices. You can rip the Band-Aid off, or you can continue on like we are. And the Band-Aid needs to be ripped off. And these folks, a lot of those, even those non-resident folks, they're dealing with those prices in other states. So I just think that probably our biggest problem was, like this been mentioned before, is that we've waited 10 years. And so it's, instead of incrementally raising it, and I get that, don't get me wrong, but if I was looking at any problem we have, it's because it's so large at this point in time, whereas if we would have done it incrementally, it would have been less painful.
Is there comments from the public on this particular agenda item? Jerome, you want to talk about park funding?
Yeah, I want to talk to Mr. Flanagan. You replaced Linda.
Yes, sir.
You got some big shoes to fill. We need more women on here. They'll get something done. You guys are hesitating too much. The fee increase, do it. It's all or nothing. And that access to U.S. Supreme Court, Fat Country Outfitters, ask them about Wyoming. This ain't just here in the state. That access is going to U.S. Supreme Court. So it's a lot bigger than we know.
Thanks, Norman. Further comments? Curtis?
I just wanted to add as a little extra context, because my time with the department started right after the RAINS Act went into effect. Martin brought me an email. The department, just for your own edification, the department did reach out to the legislature as that was working its way through the process and flag this potential issue. I don't know how that got set aside, but We did try to raise this before Rains Act occurred, just so we did our due diligence, but you know, like you said, Commissioner Carpenter, sometimes you get swept up in things unexpectedly.
Yeah, and I hope you didn't think I was
No.
blaming the wildlife.
Oh, no,
authority
not
for
at
that.
all.
No,
Not at
it
all.
was, and I actually voted for the bill, kind of one of those deals where you read it after you vote for it, but I had no idea that it affected the wildlife and parks.
Okay, Connor, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
the report. Appreciate it. Stewart? Deputy Secretary Schrog's going to talk about trail cameras on public lands.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Stuart Schrog, Deputy Secretary of Operations. Excuse me. First off, I'd like to thank Camp Aldridge for hosting this event. Do we have any camp staff here with us? No? Well, anyway, we appreciate you hosting this meeting. It's a really nice facility. It's my first time here. It's really nice to be smack dab in the middle of some really good wildlife habitat for a meeting. So appreciate them hosting this today. Okay, so trail cameras, as you all know, have been prohibited on department lands and waters, including WEHA and iWEHA for the past couple of years. The prohibition actually was enacted in April of 23. And although several members of the public that have already commented on this subject kind of went over the original concerns behind the prohibition, I thought we'd just go over them again real quickly. First of all, monopolizing wildlife areas or portions of wildlife areas with multiple cameras, and what we were seeing was people setting up, 10 plus cameras in one area, and others coming in felt like they really weren't comfortable going into an area that had that many cameras. Complaints from hunters who felt they were being spied on. We had reports and incidents where people found cameras set up on other cameras, basically monitoring activity of those people that originally had set the cameras. Other user conflicts in the field was mentioned before, someone walking in to check a camera while somebody else was hunting. Theft of cameras was also a fairly common report that we received. Disturbance of wildlife, checking cameras, not just disturbance of other hunters, but actually disturbing the wildlife going in and out to check. And the privacy concerns that were mentioned previously too. With our public lands, we have multiple users on these properties, not just hunters, anglers. We have bird watchers, mushroom collectors, things like that. And so we heard from them that they felt like they had some privacy concerns as well. And also, I believe it was Floyd earlier mentioned, not knowing what pictures are being taken of whom and social media components of that. So those were some of the complaints that we received as well. And also from the WEHA private land side, it was a major concern of our cooperators who are enrolled in WEHA. And so with any of our public lands regulations that they're adopted for our WEHA contracts. So anything that we impose on our state-owned and managed properties, those same regulations follow over into our walk-in contracts as well. And then, again, Fair Chase was part of the discussion, as Fair Chase is in a lot of the conversations we have as a natural resource agency. And initially, when we first started talking about this, we annually attend several working groups, and one of them that I've been a part of and several staff are a part of is the Midwest Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. And that has been a topic of conversation for numerous years, trail cameras on public lands. And at the time it was a hot topic, and we discussed a lot of the same concerns that we're rehashing today. Excuse me. And honestly, trail cameras continue to be a hot topic nationwide. And understand too that all of these concerns that we've mentioned are only compounded, specifically here in Kansas, because we've mentioned before that we rank 49th in the nation for the amount of public land that we do have, which means around 1.9% of Kansas is in public ownership. However, only a small fraction of that 1.9% allows public access for hunting. So it's even smaller scale than that. So those were the original concerns that were at the forefront when the original prohibition was enacted. And while these concerns still exist after further department review and more public comment, we are proposing some changes for the use of trail cameras on public lands to maybe allow some additional opportunities for our users. And so what we've been discussing is potentially revoking the current trail cam regulation, which is KAR 115.825, and looking to amend KAR 115.82, which is what I have up here on the screen. It's our blind stands and decoys regulations. And I just want to kind of quickly go over the highlights of that regulation so you'll understand where I'm going with this. I don't have every subsection of this regulation in here, but I just wanted to hit the highlights. And to Kurt's motioning me, you all should have a copy of that blinds and stands regulation in front of you too. So under this regulation, no individual may place more than 2 blinds or stands on any single department owned or managed property. And the reason we established this 2 per person per property was for the same concerns that we now have with the trail cams. We had issues of people coming in and setting up 10 plus tree stands or blinds in one area, monopolizing or the perception or feeling of monopolizing an area or a property. That's kind of what we're looking at with the 2 per person establishment here on the blinds and tree stands. Each stand or blind must be clearly marked with either the user's name and address or KDWP ID number in a visible, legible, and waterproof manner. Blinds and stands may be placed not more than 14 days before the hunting season for which the blind or stand will be used, and must be removed from department property within 14 days after the hunting season for which it was placed has ended. So what we're considering and have been discussing is basically aligning trail camera use with the same blind and tree stand regulation, but with additional language. So this consideration includes allowing any trail camera, both cellular and non-cellular, may be placed on department managed lands and waters from June 1st through August 31st. And one of the main reasons we picked this time frame in the summer was a lot of the comments that we had received were, at least let us do some preseason scouting. And so we feel like this is a good opportunity for that. No individual shall place more than 2 trail cameras on any single department owned or managed property. Again, going back to the same blind and tree stand regulation where we only allow 2 per person per property. This would align with that same restriction. And again, the monopolizing areas or portions of properties is the main driving concern behind that. Each trail camera shall be marked with either the user's name and address or the user's department issued ID in a visible, legible, and waterproof manner. No trail camera shall be placed on department owned and managed property prior to June 1st and must be removed no later than August 31st. And no trail camera shall be placed on WEHA or iWEHA property at any time. This regulation shall not apply to any trail camera that is owned by the department or a designated agent and is used for department operations or research on department lands and waters. And again, this is for department owned and managed properties only. There is no discussion or consideration discussion at all on private lands. This is just a public land specific discussion. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
For Curtis, perhaps as well, I assume it would take some kind of an exception to Open Records Act to require the filing with Wildlife and Parks where the cameras are located. Otherwise, they could be accessible by request.
Perhaps you mean if somebody were to file an open records request to find where our department owned trail cameras?
Where these cameras are, on private cameras on.
Oh, where private cameras are? Well, we would not, under this proposal, there wouldn't be like a check-in system where they would be recording data that we would be maintaining. Therefore, the response would be simply, we don't have a record responsive to your request. Does that make sense? Like, we would not be tracking their precise location.
Right.
We don't require a check-in or a registration for any other property like blinds and tree stands.
I'm just curious if that would be part of the logical extension. If they're going to get a permit or an ID from Wildlife and Parks, they have to say where they're putting it up, what property location.
I don't believe part of the proposal is to have a stamp or any kind of registration of the camera itself. I think the labeling of the camera with the name and or KDWP number itself is really what's supposed to communicate back to the department and to members of the public to counter any fears of being spied on, or if somebody feels that they're being spied on, they can go over to the camera and look at it and see it's John Smith's camera and here's his address. So.
Very good. Commissioners, questions or comments at this point in time? I got a question.
Maybe along those lines, but this might be odd, but if you required the cameras to be blaze orange cameras, so if you're out hiking, you can locate the cameras easily if you got a privacy concern.
Yeah, and I believe we discussed that previously of having some type of visible marking. It just becomes, if it's something that we consider including in the regulation, the enforceability of it. And the more we add to a regulation, we have some concerns of enforcement. I understand your point because that was discussed of potentially, considering markings so they are readily identifiable. I believe that actually came up years ago when we were considering, the regulations for blinds and tree stands and specifically pop-up blinds, how do you know if it's occupied or not when you go in there? And so we had that conversation too, but just decided not to include any visible markings at that time.
Okay.
I do want to make it clear, we are encouraging and desire a lot of public comment on this as we move this forward. We want people to have the opportunity to speak their opinions. And I appreciate everybody that has already contacted myself, other staff, and have provided written comments to the commissioner. So please, by all means, keep those comments coming.
Commissioner Cross.
If a camera is damaged or stolen, does KDWP have any liability?
Not to my knowledge.
No, that would be private action on public land. I mean, we wouldn't be liable for repaying the owner of that camera, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and quite honestly, from the stats, the numbers I've seen and the reports I've seen too, when we do get those theft reports, most people don't even want to follow through with making an official report. They're just reporting anecdotally per se that, hey, my camera got stolen. They're upset about it, but really don't want to follow through with it any more than that. So.
Okay.
Well, if you permit cellular, then they might be able to figure out who destroyed the camera.
Right.
Further comments from the commission? Do we have anybody in the audience first wants to comment on trail cams? Yes, sir. Come to the microphone, please. Thanks, Jerome. Yes, sir.
The question I have is setbacks on private property. Do you put them right on the property line, or are you required to have a setback like a building permit?
I mean, if somebody wants to set on a camera on public wildlife area adjacent to a private, do we have a safety zone or? We do not currently have any kind of language in our regulations that would require that, and that's not something that I'm aware of.
And I'm trying to think of other states I've looked at. I can do a little bit more research, but I don't recall seeing any other states that have a setback.
Kansas
buffer.
maybe ought to be number one.
That's something we'll take a look at and take into
thank you.
consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Anyone online?
Yes, we have Sean Miller. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I'm
Oh,
sorry. We'll make Sean wait.
Good afternoon, Lauren Sill from Hutchinson, Kansas. Couple of thoughts. I've had to change my mind here. I didn't realize that the regulation proposal was in place. Couple of thoughts though. This, you're not addressing solar units, security units. You used to carry your cell phone in a briefcase. It was called a bag phone. Technology changes so fast and these have to be durable regulations. We soon won't be able to tell the difference between cell cams and non-cell cams. So the durability that way is important, but looking at what's the potential, is it okay to hang a solar unit with your camera? What about the security device? You know, so there's more to it than the camera itself. And so I would encourage thinking that piece through, which you probably already have, but just a
Yeah,
thought.
and to answer that too, if you remember in the original trail cam prohibition regulation, we made mention of satellite imagery capable, devices. We would still want to include that in this amendment as well to identify those concerns.
The other piece is I look at what that has to be tagged with. There isn't any requirement that somebody have a valid current hunting license. If they've had one in the past, they have an ID number. And I think it would be significant that they have to have a current valid hunting license. That will also help prevent having one for grandma's fishing somebody going out using grandma's number with her fishing license. The 2-year-old's lifetime kids hunting license number. And now all of a sudden one family has 20 cameras out there. So if they have a valid current hunting license, I think that would be significant. The other piece, you just addressed it. I'm still going to say, I think it would be important that they have a visual marker. Okay. And maybe part of the way when you get that, I still don't think a permit is a bad thing. You can do a $2.50 one. But if they get a 4x6 orange tag that has to be with that camera, that does allow those of us who would prefer to avoid them to do so. The gentleman who commented, and I appreciated his concern for his wife and his daughters. I hunt by myself and I work really hard to do it. And it's not getting any easier. I'm not the most feminine woman around, but I'll tell you what, when I'm in the field, I am not at all. Because I will get bullied, I will get pushed around, I will have men walk in on me. It's just a woman. We are not treated the same in the field. I don't need that extra worry when I'm in the field. Granted, is there truly no right to privacy? Probably not. But it is a concern, and I don't want stuff online. And we have no control over that. You have no control over that. And there's no retrieving it. So can we not be a little bit proactive on the front end, make those things visible? My preference would be not to have them. I've tried to think, where in Kansas, outside of private land, can a person go to get away from technology? You want to go for a walk. You want to go bird watch. You want to go pick mushrooms. Where can you go where you don't have to worry about that? Short of a person standing there with a camera, our wildlife areas are it. People can't access WEHA for those kinds of things. That's hunting access only. So you can't go on WEHA, state parks. If you don't own land, our wildlife management areas are one little last teeny tiny piece of Kansas where we have some of that ability to go and relax. You can leave the cell phone in the car if you want. And just for my peace of mind, you know, I enjoy having that place because it gives me freedom and peace and a space. And we won't have any space if we continue with more than that. At least this way we'll have some part of the year. So I appreciate that. Overall, my preference would be no trail cameras. I understand trying to find middle ground, so I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Good to see you again.
Appreciate your comments and they will be taken into consideration.
Just as a matter of clarification, this is in the informational items section. So, we're doing this because just to reiterate, so everyone's 100% clear, we're doing this because we promised to come back and review it. We're doing that. We're presenting it before the commission. We'd really like to hear from the public and from the commission your thoughts on each of these components. And that's what we're doing here on this one.
Just to address one of the comments that Lauren made. So folks aren't required to have a hunting license to place a trail cam though.
No.
So we've got a lot of bird watchers and,
Yes, sir.
one of my favorite things with my trail cameras is seeing other things that I've caught, bobcats and turkeys and stuff like that. So they're not always consumptive, but they would have their address on there if they didn't have a KWP number.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Has there been any complaints about this from the non-consumptive users? I mean, it seems like we're only hearing from deer hunters that are in favor of wanting to bring the trail cams back.
Actually, I got a phone call this morning from an individual that expressed a desire to have the prohibition, compromised basically. And one thing that he had mentioned that I had not heard before from anybody was school groups, teachers wanting to utilize cameras on public lands for wildlife educational purposes, which wasn't a point that had been brought up before. So it was interesting, and I appreciated those comments too. And we do have, avenues to address that, even if we have restrictions in place. If a school group wants to come out, we could, if we had to include some language or whatever that would allow educational activities through a special permit or something like that. But so to your point, that was the first time I'd heard from the educational school standpoint of this topic.
I feel like that would come under that exception of a department or an agent of the department.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
Could the language be changed to 2 cameras per household to avoid what Lauren was saying, or would that be too difficult to enforce?
Yeah, then you'd almost have to go back and look at the blinds and stands, same, you'd have to adopt the same. And I think that from an enforcement standpoint, that'd be really tough. I appreciate the thought there, but yeah, from an enforcement standpoint, it'd be difficult.
Sean, you still here?
Yes, he is. Sean, I will unmute you.
Welcome, Sean. Sean Miller.
Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I appreciate it. I'm not going to make a tremendous amount of comments on the actual proposal today. I wasn't sure there was going to be one. But I did want to thank the commission for a few things. Number one, I wanted to thank staff for publishing the discussion item. We've had more comments today than we've had in the last 3 years. And I think that's a direct result of a better agenda-ing process, if that's a word. I've just made it one. So I've seen multiple news reports and a press release from KDWP, and it was included pretty overtly in the agenda. And I think that helped to probably drive a little bit more comment. I also appreciate that the department has a fine line to walk on all of these things, because our very limited public lands are managed for multiple uses. I am glad that Mr. Shog brought up the school departments, because I have talked to a couple of teachers and I've talked to a couple of folks on my local wildlife area who used to run cameras with their kids, oftentimes on groundhog dens or things like that, just to get fun stuff, but they were not hunters. So I do think that brings up at least a couple of things that we need to talk about going forward. And And Commissioner Sill brought up a possible permit for these. I know I have discussed that in the past as a possibility as well, something like a prairie chicken permit, really that just provides you with a number if you don't have a fishing license or a hunting license, so that you could have a couple of cameras, and also would give the agency a universe of people to survey about satisfaction, dissatisfaction, concerns, things like that. So I really do appreciate that. I also sort of mirror what I believe is a couple of folks' comments that they don't particularly care for social media, and I don't particularly care for social media either, even though I have it. But I think most of the concerns that we're hearing there are about social media, quite frankly, and not about trail cameras. Those sort of photos and the online reaction can just as easily result from a snapped cell phone pic from a tree stand. I think the only two things that I'll mention, one, just to make sure that I'm right, and a belts and suspenders approach is fine, requiring nothing on WEHA, but I don't believe there's currently any WEHA that's open from June 1 to August 31st. So I don't think there'd be the ability to access WEHA or put cameras on there anyway if these were the dates that we chose. And then the second thing that I would talk a little bit about is the overt labeling. I think Mr. Gefeller talked about an orange label or a 6-inch orange label or whatever that was. I would highly recommend some of you go to Cabela's or Academy or whatever your local store of choice is and take a look at the size of these things. None of them are a bright color, right? They're all designed with either an olive green or a camouflage pattern. The vast majority of the front is made up of a sensor and a camera lens and maybe a small display. So putting a sticker on or some kind of thing on that would advertise, hey, here's a camera, A, is going to be very difficult to do. And B, I believe it was perhaps Commissioner Cross that asked earlier, there are thieves on public land, and we're all taking a chance when we put things out on public land. But when you've got a $100 to $500 piece of equipment that you're trying to put up, placing a bright orange label on it that says, hey, here's something that's worth $100 to $500 and is not currently being guarded is a bit of a difficult thing, I think. So I think probably attracts attention for the right reasons, but for a lot of the wrong reasons as well. So I really want to, more than anything today, I wanted to thank the commissioners for following through. They had a commitment to revisit this. I did not mind waiting a few minutes for Commissioner Sill. I've been waiting about 3 years for this discussion, as most of you know. So, and I'm happy to dig into it a little bit more and kind of look through it a little bit. It's going to be hard to find a proposal that satisfies everybody. I know that's the case. I know there are people who will want to use them during the season for various reasons, many of them legitimate. But I appreciate that the staff has sort of listened to comments over the last couple of years, and I believe incorporated a lot of things into this proposal. So I look forward to some additional discussions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Questions for Sean?
No question, just commenting, makes a good point on permitting, and I think I'm really encourage you to consider that idea because it's such a great way to collect data, you know, knowing what's out there and who's out there and what the issues are, and Lauren's comment that maybe it come with the visual tag is something I think worth considering as well.
I appreciate those comments. I'm just curious, since several have mentioned this, are you those of you that have commented on this, are you envisioning one permit for a user under both cameras or a permit per camera? If we end up allowing 2 cameras, are you proposing 2 permits or 1 permit for the use of 2? And maybe I'm clouding things up too early, but I'm just curious.
I guess in the interest of knowing how many cameras are out there, I suppose a permit per camera.
Okay. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, but I was just curious.
I don't know that I have an idea. It's just, but I think it's an idea worth considering. And
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We will.
Now, personally, I think this has been a challenging issue from when I came on. The commission has been discussed a handful of times, and I appreciate what staff has done to at least put a middle ground out there so people can start to understand, well, if we change this, what could it look like? And that gives the commission and the public something to react to, as opposed to all or nothing, wild, wild west, or what? And so this has been helpful and I think it will help drive the discussion and the public can start to get a better idea of what this could look like, whether they like it or don't. And we appreciate those
Absolutely.
comments as well.
Yes,
Other
sir.
comments from commission?
So can you give us a rough order of magnitude of the process from here on out for the people watching at home?
Well, we'll continue to, ask for more input from the public and any comments that you as commissioners have, and we'll go back as a group and discuss any additional comments, that we received, not today and other times as well. And, kind of go from there based on those comments that we have been receiving as a committee per se on this topic. And hopefully, see our next commissions in January. We'll likely have some updates in the process in January.
Thank you, Stuart.
Yep.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Well, I think it's complicated. It came to us. The one thing that I just want to say is I think it's absolutely shows where our society is at when we have to worry about social media postings of folks on and theft of cameras. I mean, it just why are we even doing this? Because it just mind boggles me that we have to worry about that kind of stuff.
And I appreciate those comments, and I'm not going to go too deep in the rabbit hole here, but social media presence is also in the top 5 of hot topics when it comes to hunting in particular nationwide, and how has social media influenced and changed our outdoor recreation culture. And so it's nice to see those conversations are occurring, but it's a hot topic, so.
Bizarre.
Stuart, you're up next, but we're going to give you a break and we're going to come back at 2:00 sharp. We're going to hit the microphone then. So
Thank you.
anyway, thank you all. Appreciate your participation.
The what?
We'll see.
Oh, the one.
like that, yeah.
that we were talking. Yeah.
You may have the heat on.
Sorry about that.
What's that?
Mr. Chairman. I think.
The heat may be coming on here shortly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we ready? Ready to go?
I'm ripping it off.
Stuart?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I want to make it clear too, you know, we just discussed trail cams and I'm getting ready to talk about the non-resident waterfowl pressure issue. We're just in the information gathering, you know, discussion phase. We're not here to propose anything today. We're just hoping to facilitate greater conversation and input from our public and our commissioners.
Understood and appreciated. Thank you.
So as you all know, over the past 5 years or so, there's been a growing concern over the increased hunting pressure on Kansas public waterfowl areas by non-residents. We've heard from our residents that they're concerned they no longer have a place to hunt. Sorry about that. They don't have a place to hunt anymore where they historically have. These concerns also surround that they're not, because of the pressure, they're not able to pass on, you know, family traditions that have been established here by our Kansas residents. And also a concern that, you know, are we retaining our dedicated Kansas waterfowl hunters? Public lands managers and wildlife biologists have also expressed concerns relative to this pressure on our waterfowl behavior and use on our managed wetland areas, and that behavior and use being altered. And what I mean by that is the pressure that we've seen when we have these large groups come from out of state. They'll, you know, camp out on a wetland for days on end in large groups and hunt the same wetland day in and day out. And so waterfowl don't have that rest period that they need for resting and dietary needs, and also a culture of coming into the marsh in all hours of the night too, to set up to be the first ones there. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. And while the previous proposed regulation, you know, the 3-day, the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday restriction was not adopted, we continue to make this a very high priority topic of conversation. And I think it's fair to say that this conversation right now has superseded any deer conversations that we're having currently. So to say that is, I hope, shows how seriously we are taking this and how hard we are diligently working to come up with some solutions here and as we move the discussion along. We will not be continuing to look at that same Sunday, Monday, Tuesday restriction. We're looking at other potential ideas. And part of this process too, as we continue to seek input from our resident hunters, our NGO partners, our federal partners, we continue to look at other states as well. Many of those have had certain restrictions in place. Now they're doing some alterations of their current restrictions. So the conversation and the investigation is very in-depth and ongoing. Right now, we're focusing a lot of our attention on you know, this is just, the main focus is on department-owned and managed properties, and with a high emphasis on the 5 main wetland properties that are most readily known. You know, if people come to Kansas to waterfowl hunt, even Kansas residents, if you mention waterfowl hunting, the big 5 they're going to mention are Neosho, Meridazine, McPherson Valley Wetlands, Jamestown, and obviously Cheyenne Bottoms. We know there's pressure issues on other public properties as well, and we'll be taking a large scale look at everything. But our current focus is what can we do possibly on those 5 main wetland areas moving forward. And we're also continuing to look into other regulatory type restrictions that we've already imposed in the past that have helped somewhat in this pressure issue. I mentioned earlier people coming into the marsh at all hours of the night, setting up, which obviously common sense tells you if people are coming in and out all night, waterfowl don't have the opportunity to rest and feed like they need. So few years ago, a couple of years ago, we implemented the 5 a.m. rule at Neosho, where that regulation restricts hunters from actually stepping foot into the water until 5 a.m. And so what we've seen at Neosho, that has made a significant impact, positive impact on waterfowl use and has alleviated some of those resting and dietary concerns that we have. And so when we look at these department-owned and managed properties, that's another consideration that we are looking at potentially including as we move forward. Some other restrictions that we've done in the past include motorized vessel use on certain wetlands and certain pools within wetlands. For example, at Cheyenne Bottoms, I believe a couple years ago, we enacted I believe it's for 4A or 4B manual, I don't remember. 4B? Okay, 4B, after 1 p.m., we don't allow any motorized vessels. So you can still walk in and hunt, but just eliminating or reducing the motorized disturbance, it was another measure that we feel continues to be needed to look at as we discuss these issues. 4A, okay, thank you for the correction. Again, any future proposals that we may come forward with will just be focused on department-owned and managed properties. We're not currently looking at all at our federal properties, although I'm sure that will factor into the conversation moving forward. And I want to make this clear, any restrictions, any new proposals that we bring forward, we will not be considering or even discussing anything for private lands. This is a public lands specific topic. So in closing, like the trail cams, now's the time we really want to hear from our public. We want as much input as we can as we continue the conversation moving forward. And also from commissioners, any feedback you're getting, the written comments are very beneficial both to us and you, I'm sure. So with that, I would stand for any questions.
We have commissioner questions for Deputy Secretary Schwab. We have comments from the public today. Yes, sir.
While he's coming up, I wanted to thank Mike Castelli for offering up his comments, and we will take those into consideration. I appreciate that.
Yep, please.
My name's Jerry Buckman. I'm here with my special needs son, Noah.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
I've been an avid hunter since I was 10 years old. I grew up in Southern Illinois. My dad had a big family. It was a family of 11. And so we hunted and fished, and that's how we ate and butchered and stuff. Go ahead, grab a seat, Noah. But hunting in Southern Illinois is totally different than here. I could go up to any farmer in the county and he would let us hunt. And when I moved to Texas with my job, it was unfortunate. You had a lease and I couldn't afford it. I had to get a boat and fish, and I couldn't fish on the bank because of fire ants. But getting to the point of hunting here, I really have to praise you. Your habitat is so much better than Illinois, the way you take care of things. But I've been here for 20 years, and my son went through the whole education, and he deer hunts and duck hunts with me. And the problem I have is I usually put in the draw for the lottery at Marie Decine. And it's like 1 every 4 years, I get it. And I think, why is that? And when I do hunt, or when I go out there just to drive around to see my friends down there, the game warden Joe, just to talk with him, it's I'd say 70% of the 70 hunters are all from out of state. And they're there for like, 2 weeks from the end of October, 1st of November, and then they leave, and nobody's hunting the rest of this, except a couple local people from Kansas. And he usually always gets the special doe permit from January 1st to the 14th. And I have to hunt in a ground blind with him. And I think it's great that I was just talking to one of the Parks and Wildlife, the licensed guy back there, that I think it would be great to put an orange thing up when somebody is hunting during that period to take it down when you're leaving. But in Marie Decine, you don't have many hunters. When a hunter sees a car there, he's staying away from you. But I think that would be a great idea to put some, like a guy on a boat, you know, somebody in the water, you know, to indicate somebody's there. The thing that I wanted to recommend, especially hunting with him, and I mentioned it to Gerald Ferrara all the time, is I want him to shoot a deer. He can shoot a crossbow at 30 yards. But the problem is he moves so much, the deer, you know, I can't get him in position to shoot the deer. And Joe says, you know, Jerry, you're going to have to shoot the deer first and then shoot one to show him how it's done. But I will never, I will only shoot if I have a permit. But he always gets it. So he has to shoot a doe and we never get one. But the thing about, you know, I look at the regulations and it says, you know, for me to walk a half mile with him, getting up at 4 a.m, set up the blind, then I have to take it back down. Why can't, when I hunt with a disabled kid, why can't I keep it there? A deer stand can stay in there all season long the last year. So I have to pack up everything and then haul it all back, make 2 trips in and out. So why can't I keep the ground blind there? And then the second point I have is when I went there scouting on public ground and I drive through Marie Decine and I see all these hunters, you know, like I said, 70% are out of state. And I'm talking to this one guy, asking where he's hunting and so forth. And I'm trying to give him an indication where he can maybe possibly see deer. And he said, Jerry, I just talked to another guy. He says, if I see a tree stand, I can climb up to it, climb up in it and hunt. And I'm thinking, well, in Illinois, you'd never hunt again if you got up to your tree stand and they pulled you out. It's deer etiquette. But here it's different. But I'm thinking, okay, if I buy a 2-person stand, and Joe said, Jerry, you might have to get a stand hunt instead of a ground blind for Noah. But I can see myself putting in a tree stand and getting out, getting them up at 3 and going out there. And oh my God, there's somebody in my tree stand. So I don't know if it'd be different if it was just me, but I have him, you know, and it's a struggle sometimes, but I just miss, and I really appreciate the guy with the duck hunting thing because I duck hunt too at Marie Decine. But you have to get out there so early. And when you talk, I stay out there. I sleep in the weeds all. I just bring my own food, you know. And then some of my other duck hunter friends, they said, Jerry, when I can't go out there, they're setting up 75 yards from you and they're sky busting. You can't even shoot a duck, you know, because you're trying to work them into decoys. But like I said, I grew up hunting my whole life and trying to teach him, and it's all getting taken away. You know, but I wish there was some reason, something too, is when you do all these lottery to put in for duck and goose and quail hunt for the whole year. I mean, for certain times of the year, for 20 years I put in, and not one time I ever had a duck and goose selection where I can go hunt. And deer at Marie Decine, it's like one every 3 or 4 years, and then I finally could get my draw. So for a state resident, and I pay all this money, I put a lot of money in habitat. I think there would be a better way that maybe once every 2 years I could get to go hunting, rather than force and struggle with public hunting, especially with him. That's my question. But I thank you for all but I just drove all the way from Kansas City this morning, so we're going to head back soon. But I just wanted to bring that up.
If I could, give somebody like Manuel in the back, if you could give him your contact information, I'd like to visit with you some more.
Yeah, I wrote down my stuff on the paper.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, but
Very good.
I don't know. I think it could be something done.
I appreciate your comments. We'll
But
take
anyway,
those into
thank you for your
consideration.
time.
Appreciate your comments. We've talked.
Yeah.
And again,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have anyone else from the audience or anyone online, Jason?
Nope.
Wonderful job, Stuart. Well, almost. Okay. Yes.
Tom Cope
Yes,
again
Tom.
from Great Bend.
The deal I just heard y'all say about you're not gonna do the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. A lot of people complaining about the out-of-state hunters. The most problem I've had has been the in-state here at Cheyenne Bottoms. And it's gotten a lot better since they quit letting them guide on Cheyenne Bottoms. I wish they'd do that on the river too. But on the out-of-state, if they want to regulate some of it, why don't they make them get put in for a 5-day permit? After they hunt their 5 days, they got hunted all consecutive. They've got to put in for another one to see if they can hunt for 5 more. I mean, it'd limit, and it wouldn't really confine them either, because most of them come up. I got friends that come up to hunt from out of state, and they come up on vacation. They're here for 3-4 days, and then they got to go home because everybody's got to make a living somehow. But it kind of everything I've been listening to today, it's all wound up that public land is all being bombarded, but the private land's all been bought up. So we gotta regulate. I was told that there's people in the committee that are outfitters, and there's people in Topeka at State House that are outfitters. Well, if there is, they shouldn't be allowed to make policy on what the hunters are doing because that's a conflict of interest. So.
I would say, I'm a lobbyist, I confess. We have a citizen legislature and we get all kinds and there are rules of conflicts of interest and I'll just say they're rules. But in regard to the permit, I appreciate that. That's an idea that I've talked with some people about, and I know other
Because I think
commissioners
they
have
do that
looked
in
at that
South
and-
Dakota for waterfowl. You have to
Yeah.
put in for a permit, for a 5-day permit.
And I'm hopeful we get somewhere with this and I think quite frankly, to expedite it, it may take a legislature to buy into it too, unless we're gonna run into the money issue again. But I think, I'm not speaking for them, but I think there is consensus, something needs to be done and I think we'll make some progress on it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Norman Mount again. I forgot one item. Chumming at Wakanda Lake. Why are we allowing this? You're opening the door. So we're going to be able to use fish traps too? We're going to be able to use telephones? You're allowing chumming. That's baiting. That's illegal. They advertise it up there. We'll take you out. We'll charge you. But you're allowing it to happen. Why? I know you guys got issue with legislation and stuff, but there's the man who you ask what you can do and what you can't do. He'll give you his opinion. That's who you got to operate under, because he'll keep you out of trouble. That's what you pay him for.
Thank you, Norm.
Comment, Curtis or Deputy?
No comment.
You're not going to keep us out of trouble?
I will if you ask.
If we ask, very good. Thank you, Norman. Further comments, questions for Deputy Secretary Sherrod? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The dialogue.
Sure,
continues.
commissioners.
Very helpful. We're now, general discussion with, John Beckman. Going to talk to us about night vision coyote permit, duplicate boat decal fee. Discussion items, not proposal, I believe.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon and good afternoon to the commission and members of the public. John Beckman, Wildlife Division, Assistant Director of Research and Surveys. Today, I'm going to cover two different aspects of the fee regulation, which is 115-2-1. The first, at the request of the commission, will be covering the night vision coyote hunting season permit fee structure. And then once we cover that, then I will be discussing the duplicate boat registration fee structure. So just as background to remind everybody where we've been, the night vision coyote hunting season was established in 2020 following extensive review by agency biologists and staff. There was interest here in the last year by the Kansas Wildlife and Parks Commission to expand the season. So staff at the agency was asked to collect more information. To do this, we conducted a night vision coyote hunting survey and excuse me, hosted 3 public meetings across the state in the spring of 2025. In terms of the survey, we sent the survey to 8,000 potential respondents across different groups, including landowners, night vision hunters, deer hunters, small game hunters, and meeting attendees. In the 5 seasons since 2020, the agency has charged a $2.50 permit processing fee in order to collect data on the number of night vision hunters out there. And this is a free permit at this time, as no revenue goes to the agency, but it only pays the licensed vendor to handle the permit process. And so what I'll be talking about today is some proposed changes to the permit fee structure again, which is 115-2-1. And to inform this decisions and proposal, the agency staff looked at 5-year average of the number of night vision coyote hunters, both resident and non-residents. So just as a little bit more in terms of background, in terms of what we heard from the coyote hunting meetings that we had across the state and the survey, we did find a majority of individuals in surveyed user groups supported a season expansion. And agency staff heard from night vision hunters that they were willing to pay more for a permit to cover cost associated with law enforcement, data collection and analyses, and also associated management activities. We also know that the Kansas Wildlife and Parks Commission requested a permit fee increase as part of the season expansion. Over the first 5 years of the night vision coyote season, the agency sold an average of 5,913 permits. So that's the 5-year average. Of those, on average, 4,862 were sold to residents and 1,051 were sold to non-residents. So at this time, Secretary Kennedy is willing to make the following proposed, sorry. The following, somehow I can't go back here, Jason. Let's see if I can go back. Sorry. Secretary Kennedy is making the following proposed changes to this regulation to increase the current permit fee for residents to $27.50 and for non-residents to change the permit fee to $52.50. With these changes, the total annual revenue of the permit fee change would be $174,100 on an annual basis. Now, without this change, the agency would not be able to cover costs associated with management, research and surveys to monitor the impacts and to also look at various law enforcement activities. And so currently we conduct surveys and monitoring to understand the impacts of any new hunting season, in this case, this relatively new season and the newly expanded coyote night vision hunting season, on not only coyote populations, but human coyote interactions and potential conflicts, and then the associated other wildlife populations, including prey species such as deer and turkeys. If I can get back to where we're at here. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions or comments for Dr. Beckman?
Question if I don't sneeze first. Excuse me. The new revenue is 174,000. Are you still, are you yet covering costs at that level?
I'm not sure I understand the question in terms of covering costs with that increase.
Yeah, will that increase cover the costs that
it should at this point, in terms of covering the costs associated with all those different activities. We have the potential to have new monitoring programs coming online where we're starting to develop some survey methodology to look at, for example, monitoring fur bear density and occupancy across the state using camera traps. So that'll allow us to not only look at trends, but to get a true density and population estimates across various habitats across the state. So some of those, as we adopt those new protocols, will be some of the costs incurred, for example. So we should be able to cover those costs at this time with this proposal.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions? Or comments from the public on this discussion item? Nope, on to votes, I guess.
All right, second thing I'm going to cover here today is the duplicate boat registration decal fee. And just as some background on this, the agency currently offers replacement or duplicate boat registration decals for those that are damaged or lost. In 1992, Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks started charging a duplicate fee of $3. That was increased to $5 in 1993. And in 2003, it was increased to $10. However, in 2019, when the agency switched to paper licenses and permits from the Tyvex paper, that regulation probably was inadvertently reduced to a $0 duplicate fee. And so with the rising cost of boat registration decals and postage, a fee change would help cover the cost of those decals. So KDWP licensing staff examine the cost of boat decals purchased each year. We averaged the number of boat decals, the duplicates that were issued on an annual basis, and then figured in staff time, cost of envelopes and postage. And so the proposal at this point would be to change the current fee from the $0 to a proposed fee of $10. And over the last 5 years, the agency has issued an average of 1,257 boat replacement decals per year at a total revenue of $12,570. And so this would also be combined with that others because it's the same regulation. It's 115-2-1. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions from the commission?
So that's a break even number then?
That's pretty much a break-even number at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Is this something we're ready to move forward with, or?
No, this is the first time on the agenda. Just as a little reminder of the background, I know Dr. Beckman kind of covered it, but when the vote on the expansion of the night vision coyote season occurred, a number of commissioners expressly stated that their vote was predicated upon the department or us looking into increasing these fees on the night vision coyote. So following through with that promise and that direction from the commission to do so, this being the first time on the commission agenda historically has been that it stays on the agenda for bare minimum another meeting, perhaps another one after that if it's needed, depending on the amount of public comment or concern from the commission. But it'll be on the agenda probably in the workshop session section of the agenda in January. So we make sure we garner enough public input.
Yeah, pretty straightforward matter. So I think we could move these right along. I'll just say that. So Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what can this money be used for? I mean, is it designated for just coyote hunting money, or is it in the wildlife fee fund?
My understanding is that, pardon me, it would go into the wildlife fee fund. It could be used for other things, but the intent of adopting it and using the money would be to cover the costs, as Dr. Beckman talked about.
So I'm always concerned when I hear break even, if you're in business and you need money, why are we just covering the cost? And we have the $250,000 cap. So I think we're leaving $75,000 on the table.
It's actually $200,000.
$200,000 cap.
The 200, yeah, right.
So yeah, running the numbers, we came up to, what was the total? It's like 180, up to
Yeah,
180.
184 basically. It's 186,
I saw
186,000 between the two because you have to include them both because they're both part of the same regulation. They're
Correct,
One
yes.
15-2-1, the fee regulation.
Okay, I thought I just saw 174,000.
Yeah, that was just for that one component, but then the voter duplicate
Oh,
decal.
sorry.
So the grand total leaves us about 13 some and change in that wiggle room, so.
But it could go to $15, $17.50.
Yeah,
Right on the money.
don't want to push it too much.
There ought to be a penalty for, losing something, just like your driver's license.
I've got a question. How does that work? So we adopt it based on historical numbers, and then next year we got twice as many hunters. What does that mean? I guess I don't understand.
Well, we used a 5-year average on that. So there's some fluctuation. It has been increasing generally in trend, but there has been some fluctuation on those numbers. And so we've used the 5-year average, which is pretty common of how we.
Okay, but what I'm asking is how that legislation works, how that cap works, because we based the proposal on a 5-year average, which seems reasonable, and we put a number to it, and we say, okay, that's 174,000 plus the 12 on the boats. So we're under the threshold, but next year or this coyote season, say we've got 8,000 hunters instead of 5,000. We'll collect more than 200,000, but we passed the regulation before we got to that threshold. How does that work?
Yeah. So the REINS Act requires us to calculate direct compliance costs, and that's based the statutory. I don't have it memorized, the statutory definition of direct compliance costs, but basically it's data that we have that we collect in the normal course of our business. We have to estimate that. So we don't know if it's actually going to be 8,000 hunters next year. That could turn out to be the case. And in fact, we would bring in more money than what we're estimating, but using the best available data that we have, that we regularly collect, that's what we estimate the direct compliance cost will be, which is all we're legally required to do. So we're meeting that threshold.
Highly subjective, I think.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Where
It's
it's actually at.
It's just dumb.
Any further questions for Dr. Beck? Thank you. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Curtis, do we have a workshop session?
We do not have anything in there.
Wonderful. General public comments. We're back there again. People have further public comment? Can we talk about registration?
Been asleep.
Any more public comments? Doing great.
We have one online.
One online. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Gunnar Cortez, I'll unmute you now.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I was wanting to talk about the policy on the use of a high rack. I know that it is not legal right now. I think the words state can't be in conjunction with a vehicle. And I was just wondering what we need to do to get that legal. I have lots of reasons why it would be safer for the hunters and, more ethical on the animals. I guess, what can we do to get that legal?
Gunnar, this is Whitney Dameron. You and I have spoken on this.
Oh, hi, Whitney. How are you?
Glad you found your way online.
Yep.
I shared information with legal counsel, and he may or may not have shared it further with commission staff. But I would ask Curtis to make comments, and then if it's something that the commission wants to talk about it, I think getting some kind of a discussion back from law enforcement on the subject. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to our legal counsel, Curtis Wired. Got it.
Yes, Commissioner or Chairman Dameron forwarded on your question to me, and I provided some response to him out of KR 115.5-1, which still prohibits the use of vehicles. The quotation is use of vehicles when hunting coyotes with night vision equipment. So there's, there's a problem there when the contraption that you're talking about is attached to the vehicle. I think it's still falls within the plain language of use of vehicle if you have something affixed to that vehicle. And I'm happy to talk to you more individually offline about this matter as I spoke with Chairman Dameron. But
Okay.
perhaps there's a way we could, I don't really understand how this contraption you're discussing works, but we can talk about that more one-on-one. And we can perhaps get some input from law enforcement.
Okay. I would just, as far as like a law goes, I mean, obviously, I would say it's not to be used on roadways. It'd be for private land, nobody on the high rack while the vehicle is started or while the vehicle is running. Maybe even no occupants in the vehicle while somebody is on the high rack. And I think other hunters can attest to this too. When you're out hunting at night right now, you don't always know where your partners are, which makes it a little unsafe. And your terrain, you don't always know. A lot of times you're spinning in a circle, or you've got to move just a little bit to get to a shot or get a better shot. And being on a high rack in a seated position, you're gonna know where your partner is. It's gonna, a lot less chance of a bad accident happening. And your shot angles are gonna most of the time be more down instead of shooting flat, which is gonna take out the chance of a collateral damage in the background, as well as target identification being higher up, and just I feel like there's a lot more pros than cons, and it's just going to be safer for everyone and just a more ethical way of being able to night hunt.
I'll just add for the commission's benefit that the broad use of vehicles in 115-5-1 is what kind of creates the difficulty of this situation that Mr. Cordes is explaining. So if the commission wants to discuss that, feel free to. But that does create kind of that broad language creates a difficulty of using a vehicle in any which way to night vision coyote hunt.
And it is lawful in other states, but I do not know the wording on that. And I wanted you guys to know, it is lawful in other states. So I feel like it could be legal here too. Just, I don't know how we can go about getting it there.
As chairman, I would just offer, Gunnar, I would encourage you to visit with our legal counsel and allow him to have a discussion with law enforcement. And if that's something that we need to up in front of a commission for a more formal discussion, we can look at a future agenda item and schedule some time where the public has noticed maybe something similar to what we've done with discussion items earlier.
Okay.
So if that works for you, I think that would be a good first step.
Okay. I appreciate it, Whitney. And thanks, Curtis. I will get in contact with you.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, you may.
You're opening a can of worms on this hunting coyotes. You gonna let me use an airplane? We used to.
Not today.
Well, not ever. You either do it all or do none.
Okay. I appreciate your comment.
We never win any wars if we hesitate the way you guys do.
Further public comments?
On this item.
Any items? We're wide open.
I might add one thing, just to take a look at the gentleman that spoke about a disability, him having to take his blind down. I wonder if, Benz, it is a draw area, if there could be some kind of special accommodations made during that for a disability blind to be left out
Yeah.
more than,
And I appreciate those comments, and that's why I wanted to visit with them. We do have some additional opportunities, I think, him and his son could benefit from, through our special hunts. And even outside of the special hunt program, we do offer, some accessibility options for hunters.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
That's kind of the question I was gonna say. I got a friend of mine that wants to know why there's such a limitation on handicap blinds like out at Cheyenne Bottoms, in waterfowl areas. There's only one there. And he was kind of curious on why there was a limitation to it. I'm just wondering if it got to do anything with the price of building one or.
I defer to staff. You have a comment, Deputy Secretary?
Yeah, Manuel, I may have put you on the spot and have you come up here, or Tom Bedrowski, that are both familiar with Cheyenne Bottoms. We've upgraded a lot of those blinds recently, I believe, Manuel, have we not? Why don't you come on? Manuel Torres is the Regional Public Land Supervisor who oversees Cheyenne Bottoms.
Manuel Torres, Public Lands Regional Supervisor. So Cheyenne Bottoms, we've done some work. We're also working on a new project, the Goose Pens, as you remember. That'll be all youth and handicap, due to some funding and internal stuff that we have to do as far as getting money, and that'll be completed hopefully in the next year. All the public lands across the state will offer some areas that you have access. So there, for example, in the Southwest, we have some properties that if you contact us, we'll give you access to certain spots. Limitations, obviously, you said we have small amount of public lands across the state, so that is. And then all our managers, if you reach out and talk to them, we're always helpful in finding a place that we can assist you with. So that's all we have for now. Anything else to add?
Specifically though, Manuel, Cheyenne Bottoms, it's my understanding, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that we were actually looking at upgrading a lot of the blinds there with the renovation project.
So
Or was
we
that
did-
specifically in the Goose Pens?
The Goose Pens were the
Okay.
majority, although we did do some work on all the other blinds.
Right, okay,
So,
thank you.
but for handicap access, just encourage whoever needs it, contact your local manager and we'll work out something.
I'll say we did a lot of the work on that goose pit.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have one more public comment.
Yes, sir. Who we got?
Marshall Loftus.
Yeah, I just had a general question, I guess clarification. Earlier in the meeting, I may have misunderstood, but you were discussing hunt owned land deer permits and landowner tenant permits, and it sounded like it kind of got all lumped into one. But my understanding on that is like there is a hunt owned land deer permit, which is totally separate. But you can buy a statewide, unless I'm misunderstanding, you can buy a statewide like non-resident tenant permit. You can buy a statewide resident landowner tenant permit. And my understanding would be that those are valid statewide. And again, I may have misunderstood like the conversation earlier that Commissioner Carpenter was talking about and Curtis had mentioned those permits.
Defer to staff.
I'll let Stuart take this. I'm double checking it. I may have misspoke about the tenant portion
Yeah,
of it.
Deputy Secretary Schrog. So Marshall, I appreciate the question. Yeah, if they specifically buy a hunt on land permit, they are restricted to that property that they own. If they get the non-resident tenant tag, then it does expand statewide, basically. So they can hunt anywhere in the state, which is to the topics being raised, we have been discussing internally a lot of these permit categories and some changes that we need to take a look at regarding this.
Commissioner Carpenter.
And just to follow up with that, are they part of the draw?
No, if they are claiming to be a non-resident tenant, then they can just buy it over the counter.
Exactly. That's an issue.
Further comment, Commissioner Dufault.
The question, what's the definition of a non-resident tenant?
Without the law in front of me, I'll let Curtis. Part of the problem, I believe, is when we define a landowner, we do not in the law, language of the law, make a distinction between resident versus non-resident.
Okay, but you said a non-resident tenant is a all state, right?
Correct.
Did I hear you say that?
Yes.
So, but to be a non-resident tenant, I have to be leasing land that's in Kansas. Does it have to be agricultural land? Can it be any land? And do I have to be a farmer, or can I just be somebody that leases a piece of farmland?
So I have the statute here, 937A2. Tenant is defined as an individual who's actively engaged in the agricultural operation of 80 acres or more of Kansas farm or ranch land for the purpose of producing agricultural commodities or livestock, and who A, has a substantial financial interest in the production of agricultural commodities or livestock on such farm or ranch land, and the potential to realize substantial financial benefit from such production, or B, is a bona fide manager having an overall responsibility to direct, supervise, and conduct such agricultural operation, and has the potential to realize substantial benefit from such production in the form of salary, shares, or such production, or some other economic incentive based upon such production. And so, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
mouthful.
but my understanding was that exists for border farmers, the ones that are farming on both sides of the state line, really, that they should be probably, maybe not the only ones, but substantially the only ones that would qualify as a non-resident tenant.
That may have been the original intent of the statute, but its plain language doesn't limit it to only those who are just across the state line. So you could, in theory, be several states away and qualify as a.
Well, I think the last thing you read is kind of the loopholes that where you can manage an agricultural enterprise. So and I suppose if you're in Denver, you could manage a farm in Russell, but you're not going to be driving your equipment out there to farm it.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of harkens back to what I said before, is I know this is a thorn in the side of law enforcement. Determining who's a bona fide land manager is often very difficult for our law enforcement.
Final comments? Other business, future meeting dates and locations, at that point in the agenda?
We have the next one set January 8th in Council Grove, correct, at the Territory Ballroom?
That is correct.
And then what the April meeting, I know I've asked Megan, we typically have that at the Topeka Public Library. But I've asked her, now that we've got this beautiful new building down right next to the Capitol and the docking state building. I think, Megan, have we reserved that room yet?
It is not for sure yet, but it is probably.
Okay, we're at a
Great.
probably, but it'll be in Topeka.
Is parking okay at that one?
Yeah, you would park to the south of there's a lot to the south side.
Now, there's always, it seems to be a lot of parking really on that street, Harrison, even by the new docking building now and all around it. Legislature won't be in session, so that, well, that'll be the first day of the veto session, April 9th.
April 9th. That's why I was trying to get the exact date. We set it up so that it would work around the legislative schedule.
Where was that January 8th meeting?
Council Grove.
We going beyond that?
That's what all we have right now.
Did you say April 9th was Topeka?
April 9th is in Topeka. We are a little bit scheduled a little bit farther out than we typically are. I was envisioning in the January meeting, planning the next couple meetings after that. That would be okay.
Works for me. Everyone else? That about all we have?
That's it.
About agenda.
What's that?
Are we talking about agendas for the meetings?
We can if you have suggestions for the next meeting.
Well, one of the suggestions that came up earlier was having a WEHA presentation at one of our commission meetings. It may not be January, but in April. So you do have that on.
Correct. Yeah, we have that
I
written.
just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Yeah, we'll need to talk to staff and see, I know we've got the holidays coming up. January might be a tough one to meet, but by April, we'll definitely have a presentation on WEHA for you.
I get it.
Okay. And again, I'll reiterate, as I often do, if the commission has suggested locations, as we look ahead to June, please feel free to let me know and we'll make it work.
Very good. Going to allow for closing comments from the commission. I want to say, first of all, thank you for our meeting location here at Camp Aldridge, a wonderful facility. It's nice to come out here. Number two, appreciation to all the staff who make these meetings and in particular this time of the year, the people that work outdoors. I know you have a lot of challenges with upland hunting, deer hunting and things like that. You've got the pressure from the public when trying to keep everybody doing things by the book, and it's a difficult job. And everyone who dodges the deer on the highway is getting here and back safely, hopefully. With that, to my left, Commissioner Cross, do you have any closing comments or anyone else down the line?
Not for me. Thank you.
I'm okay.
Fine.
Just thanks to the staff and thanks for the public input. That's helpful to have that and we appreciate it.
Thank you for everybody. Motion to adjourn.
Accepted. Thank you all. Appreciate you.